So, in response to a few emails that I got from you guys, I'm gonna try and walk you through like step by step on what I did on this shot to do it on the iPad. So the first thing that I did was actually shoot a reference of myself, just to have an idea of how the body was gonna work, with some inspiration taken from a YouTube channel called Legend of Micah, who actually did a Mandalorian stunt tribute, which is actually pretty fun to watch. I'll try and link the video so you guys can actually go see her stuff. It's actually pretty cool. So once I had the reference shot, I just opened up the video and took a couple of poses here and there, just some of the main action keys of the shot, just to get myself more familiar with how I was going to pose a character, what tweak was I going to need to do to the actual character design to make all of that work. So in the end I ended up with like those 6 poses that you see on the screen, which would become like the key poses of the entire action. I didn't really stick to any of the timing inside the reference. All I wanted to have was like a clear idea of like how to pose a character. And once I had that, I just moved to like my first pass of rough animation. So I basically just copied all 6 poses in Rough Animator and then started blocking everything. And as you can see on the screen, my very first pass of blocking is pretty terrible. Like, you have an idea of where I'm going, but timing is off. The idea is not like super clear. Some areas are not interesting at all, like him entering the scene is not fun. Him leaving the screen is kind of clunky. Timing of him whooshing flamethrower around the screen seems too fast, but at that point it doesn't really matter. All I'm looking for is the direction, and now all I need to do is start adding like more work on the actual in between, the timing, and as everything starts to be clear and move more in like a fluid way, then I'll start to like put the character on models and then add details. But I usually keep everything super loose until I'm very sure of where I'm going. Another thing that I tend to do also when I do my rough blocking is I don't try to actually in between everything. Most of the time I'll end up with like a couple of 1s here and there, 2s, and usually a lot of so on 4. The main reason for that is when I have like slow ins and slow out, I know that these are going to be like really tight spaces, so I just tend to keep those for direct clean drawing. So I'll just bring my 2 key poses and build the actual like final clean drawing on the spot as I go. And it doesn't prevent me from actually like reading the animation. If I feel like I'm missing something, I might have like just a quick stick figure or a couple of lines just to give me like a direction for my eyes. But in general, like that's the furthest that I'll go in the actual blocking. The rest of the in-between is going to be just in clean. So now that the rough animation is done, this is where I'm going to switch over to Procreate and Rough Animator from time to time. Basically, the main reason why I'm switching to Procreate is that in order to clean the drawings, Rough Animator doesn't give me the control and the precision that I want to actually clean the line. So what I do is I just use the ability that Rough Animator and Procreate have to talk to each other to just instantly transfer my drawing by doing copy-paste between the 2 software. And once a drawing is actually finished and clean, I can just use the same tool to copy paste it back in Rough Animator, except this time I'm actually going to copy it on a copy of my timeline, which contains the exact same timing as my animation, but all the frames are actually empty. So all I'll do is just copy paste a new drawing in the empty slot and gradually fill up my timeline with all my new drawings. So the way that I approach cleaning drawing is usually done by using like 2 to 3 different thickness of line. And the way that I apply them is that if you were to look at an actual like 3D cube, everywhere where in real life your hand could go behind the object, all of these lines are going to be very thick. Every line that's on a flat 90-degree surface, like the bottom of the cube where dust could accumulate a bit, this would be like a mid-thick line. And every other detail that just allows you to actually define the shape itself. So what this does is that the very thick line allows you to read the silhouette of the character very clearly and easily. But all those thin lines allow you to also read all the details of the character without overwhelming your eyes with information about the rest of the character. So it took me a couple of tries before I could actually make the fire effect work the way that I wanted to. I ended up making it work using a technique that somebody showed me, which was to actually split the fire into different layers. So basically my first pass was just to draw the actual contour shape of the actual fire and how it was going to move throughout the screen. Once I had that done, I knew what kind of surface I was going to cover, and then what I had to do was fill the inside. So the way that I filled the inside was that I would just do bubble, and as it would get bigger, I would just have like something sliding on the surface, kind of like if you had fire or heat wave sliding down the actual bubble. And I just started putting those bubbles everywhere inside the shape and making them bigger and smaller and just varying all the patterns together. And eventually it just gave me this very, very thick layer of motion. All I had to do now was actually just clean out all the line and actually fill some area with either white or black. And as I would start filling everything, those bubbles would start to blend together because those areas of black and white would just slowly merge together, and eventually you would end up with this like cohesive, like abstract pattern that would just flow into each other, creating like the wall of fire. So for the final comp, I actually moved out of the iPad and into After Effects. I brought in the line outs, the color, the cape, and assembled all of that together. Then I brought in the highlights and the shadows, which were set up in the same mode of fusion that I had in Procreate. I then added the glow on the laser and the actual fire. I then just added the camera move and a bit of a foreground element in the front. And eventually I moved on into the final audio mixing. And there you have it. This was the walkthrough of how I did this shot. Hopefully that made sense. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And thank you for watching.